y'all really was kicking it to set this up. And I'm not familiar with Frazier or his work, so I'm not here to discredit that. But it just felt like you wanted more from a journalist.
Like a PR stunt thing?
Nah, it didn't feel like a PR stunt. It felt like, yo, Jay has shows coming out. Maybe he has new music coming out. Yeah. So there's something to promote. So here, I'm going to go on a really big platform, GQ, which makes sense, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But I think it's the journalist's responsibility to make sure that whatever content is in question or whatever things are in question, that they raise those questions. And I don't think that the Busby and those allegations, that's all nonsense. Mm-hmm. I honestly, I didn't even need to really even see or hear about that.
Right.
But that part. Mm-hmm.
But when he says stuff like, when Jay says stuff like, I'm a realist, I'm not an idealist. That's intellectually dishonest, because in the same breath, you're also saying, hey, I couldn't get signed by any record company, so I, did it myself. Like, that's inspirational. That's ideal. Mm-hmm. And so, like, it just felt like he was just saying stuff, not being really challenged on the record by this journalist.
I know Frazier, and he's cool. I think he's a good journalist. He was at Complex before. Has been at GQ at least 2 or 3 years, senior editor. I think he was caught between a rock and a hard place, right? Okay. As far as you get Jay-Z, ideally we want to be like, yo, this is journalism. We're going to ask Jay-Z whatever we want. We're going to challenge him. That sounds good on paper, mm-hmm. But Jay-Z ain't going to do your interview.
Right. About that.
If you have those rules, which are fair. Maybe certain other outlets that might work, like say a New York Times. Right. But even then, I think Jay-Z's such a big artist, he'd be like, well, I'll interview, but you're not going to ask me about this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, he just go work either somewhere where he chooses, maybe a blog, but that's a whole different story, because people are like, oh, why didn't he go to Bleak's joint? Even Bleak's like, yo, there's a difference between me speaking to the homie versus speaking with a journalist.
That's just relationship.
But that's
exactly.
But that's my point. I'm not even saying to ask about the allegations that he talked about. Leave that off if you want to leave that off the table, but in real time, when somebody mm-hmm. says something that clearly doesn't make sense or just feels like you're just talking, just push back on it to get clarity. And I didn't see that.
Yeah. Well, I thought he was well prepared too. Cause he had lyric. I think I get what you're saying. I also think he was well prepared as far as knowing about Jay-Z, knowing certain lyrics or points or certain things he said before. But I totally get what you're saying about it being almost too casual of a conversation. But then it's like, what are you really gonna if I know people are talking a lot about the billionaires, should there be billionaires? There was plenty of points there where he could push back, but it's like, you want to push back and say, all right, interview over, B, I'm out. I told you.
But not interview and not push back in an antagonistic way, because we're all part of the same culture.
Right.
So we're not, I'm not here to demonize Jay-Z, but the point is let's give people information. Mm-hmm. And how do we give them information? By challenging and by questioning the information that we're given. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Totally.
I think the answer is in what you just said. I think you just touched it for me. It's we're all part of the same culture.
Yeah.
GQ is not.
Mm-hmm. Fact.
GQ is not. I didn't expect anything. Let them go sit down with him at one of his spots. I'm calling him if he doesn't. Yo, what's wrong with you, bro? How you?
Right.
But the thing is, he knows I'm watching.
Right.
And not just me. He knows. He's what he knows. You're watching. He knows. Yeah. He got a whole Rolodex full of.
And we probably use that technique. Speaking to a rapper, like, yo, man, I'm not trying to disrespect, but I got to ask you this, because if I don't ask you, people going to look at me like, I'm crazy.
Off.
Let me ask you. Then you have reasons to be like, well, I'm not going to answer. Or, you got to comment.
You got to do something.
Or you can start answering, people respect you if you answer, right?
He's called me when I've not. Yo, Mecc, how'd you miss that? I got him in my phone. I show you the text. Yo, Mecc, how'd you miss that? Half of what I do in preparation is knowing that I have an entire community of minds who are going to check me if I don't do X. But if I'm working for GQ, it's not the purpose. The purpose is the pictures.
Mm-hmm. You got no context.
Yeah.
The purpose is the photo. The purpose is the fashion.
The biggest cultural question around Jay-Z right now is where he is in relation to his community.
Hmm.
And
This is interesting.
and I think that behind the scenes, there's so much that he does, whether it's philanthropy, those types of things, how he treats his artists. Like, I think that there's a lot of stuff that can be discussed, right? But I think that the questions, that doesn't mean like two things can be true. It doesn't mean that there aren't questions about how you exist in a billionaire class, right? And your responsibility to the people that got you there, right? And how do we address that? But then also the question of whether or not a billionaire should exist. And he had this like consistent refrain. I never cheated anybody. I never I never did wrong by anybody. And it was like
the backlash was immediate.
Yeah,
Like,
right
hey,
there.
so Bruns, be like, come on, man. Like, no disrespect. Like,
All right, now, come on, guys.
yeah.
but also like even that as a talking point is like, no, that's not the point of billionaires shouldn't exist. You didn't get $1 billion by selling drugs. So that is not even part of the question.
Right.
What really is the question here is, we have a society where there are people who spend $10,000 a day, whether it be on cuisine or staff. And then we have a society, maybe 10 blocks away, where people are not eating. People don't have a place to live. People don't have a place to sleep. And so do we have a responsibility? Jay, do you have a responsibility to help our society figure out those ills? It's not that it's your sole responsibility.
Right.
But, do you have a responsibility as part of this billionaire class? And I don't,
It's a fair question.
Yeah.
never
Fair
asked.
question. Yeah.
That's a question that GQ could still ask.
And I'm thinking about just like in traditional, like I said, he didn't announce the album, but the traditional rollout like this, you're gonna speak to GQ, you might also speak to New York Times. Back in the day, you speak to the Source, Double XL, on those type of vibe, those type of those iconic hip hop journalism bastions aren't there anymore, or they're on the same level. That's why I was like scrunching my face whenever somebody was like, "Yo, why don't you just go to
All hip hop.
Now, all hip hop school used to work there. Sure.
No.
Or but I'm thinking more of Nori or
Okay. Drink Champs or
Ring Champs or
He's going mass
or
media.
the Shade Room. It's like, come on, fam. Like it's like it's not really the same thing. I'm talking like sit down with somebody that can read, like you said, challenge you, like really get to the crux. And speaking of Jay, because I haven't read a good Jay-Z story. Not that I think it's a bad story, but I haven't read like an in-depth Jay story where I see like difficult questions asked and answered.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, and I feel like even the conversation about what's owed to like what publications, like whether going to a Black publication, there is a conversation to be had about is there a responsibility to make sure that the Black publications are given the same look that historically global North based, publications like GQ, Vogue, and them get. Like, can we have a practice or an exercise where we lift up, Black publications?
But he started the anti rap mags try to use my Black ass, so I advertise and give more cash for ads. Fuckers, I don't know what you take me as or understand the intelligence that Jay-Z has. Like, he started I'm not doing that. Like, screw y'all.